So we saw the Mishnah yesterday that there were 13 tables and what the tables were there for. And the Mishnah told us that there were also tables, additional tables that were built in the Beis HaMikdash next to the shulchan, the table that had the lechem apanim and the showbread, and that there were also tables at the entrance of the Beis HaMikdash and the exit, the entrance for the new bread that was coming in. Every Shabbos they would switch out the bread on the showbread on the table, the lechem apanim was on the shulchan, and they would bring in the fresh ones, put it on the by the doorway. That was the way it was brought in, and then it was put out. It was swapped out with the lechem apanim, the bread that was there all week, and that would be brought out. And because it was already on a gold table, not to go down to a lower level, it was also put on a table. Tani shel kesef. However, the first table, which the Mishnah said was made of marble, the Brisa says it was made of silver. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Chanina Matiba, Mishum Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Les Kashal Kesef. No, they wouldn't put it on silver tables when it was hot out of the oven, coming in fresh, because the silver, being metal, would warm it would conduct the heat. It would itself become hot, and that would make the bread mold or go bad. So Gemara says, who cares? Look, Tani, didn't we learn? This is one of the miracles that was done in the Beis HaMikdash. Just as they brought it in hot, so also they brought it out hot, and it wouldn't go moldy. Shenamar, as it says, lasum lechem cham b'yoyim to place bread that's hot on the day it was taken, that it was hot like the day was taken all week long, and the bread wouldn't mold all week. So what are you worried about? That to know how to put it on such a table that's a silver table that's going to conduct the heat and itself going to ruin the bread. In any case, it was one of the miracles that the bread stayed hot. So when you plan something, you can't say, well, we're going to rely on a miracle. You can't say, well, there's a miracle. You don't remember that. You plan to do it in the best functional way. The fact that miracles happen, that's the bracha from Hashem. But our action has to be not reliant on miracles, but the action that is necessary itself. And so therefore, Rabbi Yochanan says that the tables at the entrance, like our Mishnah says, were not the table going in was which the new fresh bread was placed on, was not made of silver, but rather of marble. Gemara asks, if you didn't have new bread to replace, do we say that the old bread became invalidated if you left it on the table too long, as Lena overnighted and once it was supposed to be taken off? Or do we say, no, leave it there because the table can't be empty, the shulchan shouldn't be empty of bread? So Ba'un Kamei Rabbi Ila Lo'haya Sham Lechem. You didn't have new fresh bread to bring in on a Shabbos. Can we leave the old bread for the next week as well? It says in the pasuk, and you place on the table before me bread, lechem panim, showbread, constantly. Lechem panim, I feel apostle. That the bread would remain there even if it was beyond its time, which would essentially make it invalid. Nevertheless, you would keep it there. And the question of the meaning of this Gemara is that it doesn't become invalid, or even if it becomes invalid, you leave it there. Now, the Mishnah had said that there were many tables in the Beis HaMikdash, even though that in the mitzvah of making a table, there's one. And it said that Shlomo added 10 tables to the one table that was there, and the same 10 menorahs to the one that was there. Now, to understand this next Gemara, we have to understand the structure of the Beis HaMikdash. The structure of the Beis HaMikdash was a 60 on the outside. It was 60 by 20 amos, 60 by 20, 60 long, 20 wide, and the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy Holies, was 20 by 20, leaving a 40 by 20 chamber as the Beis Hamikdash itself. This 40 by 20 was split in half. Sorry, it wasn't split in half. We could diagram in our head that the first half of it, the first 20 by 20, was completely empty. It was just a large empty space. And then the second 20 by 20, that's where the vessels were. What vessels were there? What kelim were there? Directly in the center was the Mizbeach, and that was just slightly in from the midpoint of the room, but in the center of the room. And on the south side and on the north side were the menorah and the shulchan. So the shulchan needed to be the shulchan needed to be entirely on the north side. The table needed to be on the north side, meaning it could only be within the 10 amos of the northern side of that room. And same goes for the menorah, which had to be on the south side. It had to be entirely in the 10 amos within the south side. So we essentially had the menorah and the shulchan facing each other, the menorah and the table facing each other. And in the middle of that, but set back so that it wasn't between the two, was the altar, the mizbeach. So if you were walking in, you were walking in east to west, and so on your right side you'd have the table. Straight ahead you would have the mizbeach, the altar, and to the left you would have the menorah. So the Gemara says, Asara shulchan shasa Shlomo, the 10 tables that Shlomo added to the one table that was already there. The Chsiv Hayah shulchan asara, as it says, he made 10 tables. Vayanach behechel chamishim yamin v'chamishim esmoil, and he put them in the hechel, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left side. In time of chamisha b'darim v'chamisha b'tzafayin. Now, if you're going to tell me what it means is he put 5 on the southern side of the room and 5 on the northern side of the room, well, the tables have to be on the north side. He could not have put it on the south side. The table is only kosher on the northern side. As it says, the table has to be on the northern side. So what does it mean 5 on the right and 5 on the left? Meaning facing the table, there were 5 to the right and 5 to the left. Or same would be if you're standing at the table facing the room, it would also be 5 to the right, 5 to the left, meaning they were all in the northern side of the room, and parallel to the table, straight along the table. And that was the main table, and there were 5 to its right and 5 to its left. So in the length of the 40, along the northern wall of the 40 amma long room, there were a bunch of tables. And this opinion says, and he only put showbread, he only put lechem upon him on the table of Moshe, the original table, and all the additional tables were only there as adornment. The table upon which is the lechem upon him, seeming that the lechem upon him was only one of the tables. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, however, Rabbi Yosef says no, he would put them on all the tables. The tables, and upon them lechem upon him, seemingly upon all of them. Tani. So we learn Mizuch Amar Vaynasu, Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Eliezer tells us, as we just explained, that on the northern side of the room, running from east to west, were a bunch of tables. That's what Rabbi Eliezer says. Bei Rabbi Shimon, however, Rabbi Shimon said the Rabbi Shimon is of the opinion no, the tables went from north to south. Well, if that's the case, being that each table is 2 amas long, and there were 10 tables running from north to south, that would take up the entire length of the room. So the one who said it went east to west makes sense. They're all worthy of service. But the one who says that it went from north to south, which tells us that some of the tables had to be on the southern side of the room. And now we go to 18a at the top, and also the same would be if there were, as we saw that we mentioned that Shlomo also made 10 additional menorahs. If they were running north to south, and the menorah has to be on the south, well, you're going to find that some of the menorahs were in the north. A menorah b'tzafon. But we learned in the Brisa that the table was within the inner half of the room. As we mentioned, the room was 40 long, and so in the 20 by 20 inner part, and it was 2.5 amos away from the northern wall. That's where they placed the table, meaning being that it was 20 wide, it was 17.5 from the southern wall, from the southern wall where the menorah was. On the north side, a menorah connected, and then the menorah is directly against it, meaning facing it. Bedarim on the southern side, also 2.5 away from the wall. Mizbeach Hazav and the golden altar, meaning the non-connected to the ground altar that we were talking about before, was at the midline, at the 20 amma, at the 10 amma line. So 10 ammas from one wall and 10 ammas from the other. Now, bayis cholekas abayis mechesil, and it splits the house, meaning the room. And it was mechetziol lefnim mashok kima. It was from in the halfway inward, meaning it was in the inner half of the room, but it wasn't directly directly between the menorah and the table. But mashok kima klape chutz. However, it was pulled back a little bit from the menorah and the table, so as not to be directly between them. And they were all pulled away from the third of the house, meaning if it was 60 long and it was the first 20 by 20, meaning the first 20 amos, which is the third of the house, had nothing in it. And then it says, Eser menorahs also Shlomo, also that 10 menorahs that Shlomo made. Shenemar, as it says, V'yas menorahs azav Eser k'mishpatim. He made 10 menorahs as they were meant to be made, and it is the one that Moshe had. V'yita b'Eichel Hashem, and he put them in the Heichal Hashem in the Beis Hamikdash. B'Heichel in the Beis Hamikdash. Hey min v'hei mismal. 5 on the north side and 5 on the south side. Now, in Tamar Chamesh B'Tzafon, you're going to tell me there were 5 on the north side, v'chamesh b'darim, and 5 on the south side. Well, if you're going to say, like Rabbi Shimon says, that it ran perpendicular to the one menorah, it ran north to south, then you're going to have some of the menorahs in the north where it's supposed to be, and some in the south. Some in the south where it's supposed to be, and some in the north where the table is supposed to be, and that's invalid. As it says in the pasuk, the verse, the Torah tells us that the menorah has to be nochach, directly against, facing the table, al yarcha mishkan temana, and on the side of the mishkan on the south side. So what does it mean? 5 on the right and 5 on the left. It means 5, not as you walk in, 5 were on the right and 5 on the left, or rather facing the menorah, 5 on the right and 5 on the left. But they were all running along the southern wall. And still here too, the Gemara says that it was the Kohen Gadol only lit the menorah of Moshe. That the menorah and its candles, so singular, to illuminate, to light it up every night. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda, however, Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda, he says no, that just like we have the opinion in the tables, the shulchan, so too by the menorah, he would light each one. Shenemar ves menorahs v'nirasehen lavarim kemishpat lefnei advir. The menorahs and their candles to ignite them as the law is in front of the devir, in front of the holy. Now it says over there was Zov Sagur, it was closed gold, essentially. Va'perach, va'neres, va'makachayim Zov, the flowers that were on it, and the candles, and the tweezers that would use to fix the wicks. Zahavu mechalis, the gold was mechalis, which literally means to complete. So what does it mean? Zaven kilu zave shal Moshe. This completed the gold of Moshe, meaning it was such refined gold that it ended the gold. It completed all the gold. That's how refined it was. The idea is that they refined it again and again in a smelter to make sure that it got rid of all impurities, and as such, it was condensed down to a very pure gold. Tani Rabbi Yehuda b'Shem Asi Shlomo noitel elef kikrei zav. Shlomo took 1,000 chunks or pieces of gold. Umachnisa lekura metzia. He would put it into the smelter and take it out. Achahu mamidan al echad. Brought it down to 1,000th of it, to one size of gold. To fulfill what it says, kikar zahav tar asasa. A chunk of gold, pure, he made it. Tanya Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Ma'aseh menorah zav she'asa Moshe b'midbar, v'yisera din zav. The story is that the golden menorah that Moshe made in the midbar was an extra one dinar worth of gold in weight. And they put it down in the smelter 80 times to try and bring down some of the impurities. It didn't, and nothing was missing from it. So is that really correct? Normally you put in gold, much of it will get lost because there's so many impurities in it. Since this was already so refined that it had all the impurities were out, even though they put it in 80 times, nothing was missing because it was completely, it was so pure, it was completely there. So we saw the additional 10 tables and the additional 10 menorahs, the shulchanos and menorahs. The shulchan has to be on the north, the menorah has to be on the south, a machlokes of whether it was all along, parallel to the table, all along the northern wall and parallel to the menorah all along the southern wall, or that they were perpendicular and running north-south. And then we had the questions of that some of the tables were in the wrong spot. The next Mishnah goes back to the 13 shofars. We said there were 13 collection boxes that looked like a shofar. They were wide at the bottom, like the opening of the shofar that the sound comes out of. And then it was curved out to the top and narrow, so that coins and donations can go in, but that nobody can take any out. Shloisha Asa shofars Ohev HaMikdash. We said there were 13 shofars. Now, what do we need 13 for? The Mishnah is going to enumerate and explain various shofars. Kasav alein takla chadin. One said on it, the new coins. Shekel chadash, takla chadatin, the new coins. And that was the donation for this year. Everybody would come and bring their donation, or the city's messenger would come and bring their donation and put it into there. The next one said the takla atikin. It was the old coins, meaning somebody who had missed previous year's donations and came to make it up, they would pay into their kinin. One of them would say it was for nests. And we know the halacha is that there were some people that had an obligation to bring bird karbanos, and this was a zava and a yoledes, etc. And so these bird donations would be a mix of a chatas and an ola. However, there was donations of birds that would be two olas, two ascent offerings. So you have essentially two types of pairs of birds that come. Either both of them are an ola, or one is an ola, one is a chatas. And they're either obligatory or a donation. Also, we have two types of birds that can come. Torim and Bnei Yonah. Torim are turtle doves and they are adult. And Bnei Yonah are doves and they are young. So we'll see machlekas of which one of these, what was used, what was the meaning of Kinan. So Kinan on nests. V'gozli ola. And the next one said, these are birds, young birds, for an ola. Eitzim, another one was for donations of wood, for the fire. Lavona, donations for the frankincense, which was a donation. We'll see how much that is. Zav kaporas, and also gold for kaporas, which can be, the kaporas is the cover of the ark, but that was already made. So it either means covering the room of the Kodesh with gold, or it's referring to some vessels that were made of gold, or the refurbishing of gold in the Beis HaMikdash. So gold for the coverings. And then Shishal and Nadav. And 6 of them were for Nadava, for people who want to donate for the general fund of Karbanos. So the Gemara, the Mishnah now elaborates. Takle Chadatin. So the new coins, Shabachal Shana Vashana, for each year's new coin. Vatikin, the old coins, Mishalevi Ashtaket, Shekel Shana Haba. Somebody who missed bringing a previous year is going to make it up this year and put it into the old coins. Kinin. So what are the birds, the nests? Hein Torah. So the first opinion says that's turtle doves, for the adult turtle doves, and that's why it's called nests, because they were the adults. The Gozle Ola, and the next one was for the young Ola birds. Heimene Yona, those are the young birds. Kulan Oilas, but they were all ascent offerings. So in both of the boxes that were for birds, the one that said nests and the one that said young Olas, all of them are essentially two birds that are going to be an Ola ascent offering. As we're not doing any chatas in here, and the Gemara is going to explain why. And the two separate boxes, one was for the adult turtle dove, and the other was for the young doves. Rabbi Yehuda, that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. However, the Chachamim say, no, that's not what the two boxes are for. The Chachamim keen in that the nests, that one that said nests, there, they were made for people that needed to bring echatas and an ola, two different types of offerings. Echad chatas v'echad ola. So somebody who needed to bring a pair of birds, one chatas, one ola, whether adult turtle dove or a young dove, they would all come from there. That's what Kenan nests are. And Gozli Ola, the ones that say young birds for an Ola, that's Kulan Olas. That's when somebody needed to donate birds, but both of them were going to be an Ola offering. Now, the Mishnah explains. If somebody says, it's incumbent upon me to donate wood to the Mizbeach. So since he said 8 sim woods, he should not have less than 2 gezirin, 2 chunks. And each chunk, the Gemara is going to tell us, was an amma by an amma. So it was basically a flat brick of wood that was for the pyre, for the fire on the Mizbeach. Levina, somebody who was donating Levina frankincense, leifches mekomitz, should not be any less than 1 fistful, which is what the kohen would take from a mincha. Zav, somebody says he's donating gold. It should not be less than 1 golden dinar. Shisha l'nadav. There were 6 boxes, 6 collection boxes for nadava, for gifts. Nadava, these gifts, these donations, what were they? What was done with them? They would acquire olas, ascent offerings, for the mizbeach, to keep the mizbeach going. Habasar lashem, and the meat from those other offerings went completely on the Mizbeach. However, the hides, they went to the Kohen. In the first Beis Hamikdash, towards the end of the Beis Hamikdash, there was a Kohen, his name was Yehoyada Kohen Gadol, and he had a drash on this verse. It says in regards to the sin offering, Asham hu, Asham Lashem. It is a sin offering. It is a sin offering, a fire offering to Hashem. So he had a contradiction. Is it for him, for the Kohen, or is it for him, for Hashem? So he said the rule is anything that comes from and for a sin offering, so the funds, the money from there would go to ola offerings. Habasa l'shem, the meat goes to Hashem. However, the hides go to the Kohanim. So this way, both verses are fulfilled. Asham Lashem. It is, and the sin offering is a fire offering to Hashem, that the entire animal, all its meat, goes on the mizbeach to burn up. V'asham lakoyin, but it also goes to the koyin because the hides go to the koyin. V'omer, and then the meaning of this verse is kesef asham kesef chatas, that the monetary value that there is to the koyin in the sin offerings, la'yuva beis Hashem, that don't come to the Beis Hashem, l'kahanim, that goes to kahanim, and that's what is able to be sold afterwards, meaning the hides. So the value of the hides, that value goes to the kahanim. Tanya Amar Rabbi Yehuda, so Rabbi Yehuda now explains himself, says why there was not a collection box for the birds that had one chatas and one oila, the pair. Because, he says, you're mixing the funds of a chatas and an oila. And what's going to happen if person A comes and they donate 2 coins, one for their chatas, one for the oila, 2 birds that they have to bring. And so they put it into the collection box. And then they pass away. And they're obligated in a chatas bird. And then we know that the halacha is that a chatas, a sin offering, that the owner died, essentially that diminishes the need, right? That limits the need for an atonement here because the person has passed. So we can't bring their korban anymore. And so chatas should shema thomas achas, maybe the person who, one of the people who donated, in our example, person A who donated into this box, you have a whole box full of coins, but one person's coin is for a sin offering that has that the owner has died. And this chatas, where the owner died, so the bird is also left to die and it cannot be brought as a korban. This bird, this chatas is mixed into there, and so now you have a mixture of hundreds of coins, one of which is invalid, and that's going to mean that you can't buy anything from there. Vatanya, we learn, it is incumbent upon me to bring a nest, meaning 2 birds. And she will, it says, she will take the money, the value of that nest, and she will put it into the box. And now we go to 18b, and we can assume that the korban will be brought properly, and she can eat the kachim that night. And she doesn't have to be concerned that maybe the kohen was lazy, meaning that some of the birds were not purchased from the money. Meaning all of it is emptied every day, and all of it is spent on birds, and they bring enough birds to fulfill everybody's obligation. And he doesn't have to be concerned that there was a chatas in there that the that the owner died is in there. So we see that Rabbi Yehuda was not concerned about the owner dying. When it says, yeah, but Rabbi Yehuda is saying that you're right. I don't have to be concerned maybe one of the owners died. But when we know one of them died, how are you going to use the money in the box when you know for sure that one of them died, and then you know that you have an invalid coin in the mix. Now, v'iyamrinan nivrar daled zuzi v'nishti benara, and if you say that we should do brera, now the concept of brera is that we were at a later point retroactively define what happened here. So then we could just essentially say, pick 4 coins and say these 4 coins are for that person who died. Remove them from the mixture, meaning the value of the chatas that's invalid. We'll just take it out and toss it in the river, and that will retroactively be the coins for the person whose invalid chatas is in here, and the rest will be okay. So if you follow the opinion that you can say brera, that you can say this retroactive redefinition of the coins, so then I could just pick 4. Say these are the 4 for the chatas, and toss them into the river, essentially removing the mixture of the invalid coins from within here, and that'll be fine. And that's the opinion of the Chachamim in our Mishnah, and that's why they say, go ahead. No, the nests, the box, that's what it means over there is that people who need a chatas and an oil are going to bring the coins, put it in. And what are you concerned about? Maybe one of them is going to die, or even if you know for sure that one of them is going to die. Okay, so when you know that one died, you just take 4 coins out, say these 4 coins represent. We're not saying that they are actually from that person, but we're going to say that these are theirs. We're going to retroactively define them as their coin, toss them away, so that now the chatas that is invalid is no longer mixed in the hundreds of coins, or thousands of coins, because we've extracted it by the use of brera, a retroactive redefinition of what those coins are. And the rest will be okay. However, because we say that Rabbi Yehuda generally is against the concept of brera, does not hold that you can retroactively redefine or define what happened back when the donation was made. And therefore, within this box, you have an actual coin that was designated as a chatas, and the chatas is invalid because the owner has died. And so you now have an invalid chatas coin in the mixture, and invalidates everything. You can't bring the carbon because maybe this is the coin that is invalid. So therefore, now Mishnah Rabbi Yehuda says that there were no donations for the mixed nest, meaning one chatas, one oila. Rather, the one box that said nests, that was for the adult turtle dove, but both of them are going to be ola, and the box that said gozli olas, the young ola, that's for the young bird doves, but they were not actually combined. Now, the Mishnah had said that one of the donations, that what box is for wood. The wood would be the wood donated for the fire on the mizbeach. Rabbi Yosef ben Rabbi Bona, Omar Rabbi Ba Bar Mamel. Boy, he asked, Omar Harei like eights. If you didn't say like the text of our Mishnah, that is incumbent upon me to bring woods, or rather, he said it's incumbent upon me to bring wood, singular. Now, in English, even plural pieces of wood may be wood, but in Hebrew, eitz is singular and eitzim is plural. So if in the Mishnah it said harei like eitzim, plural, he has to at least bring two pieces, 2 chunks, as the Mishnah said, harei like eitzim. If he said the minimum eitzim is going to be 2 of these chunks of wood. What about if he said harei like eitz? It's incumbent upon me to bring a piece of wood. Maybe gizer echad. It doesn't have to be shnei gizer. It doesn't have to bring 2. 1 is sufficient. 1 block. Amar Blaza Masita Amra came. The Mishnah also is clear that way. Shazeh karban b'fnei atzma, v'zeh karban b'fnei atzma, because each piece of wood that was placed on the mizbeach is its own carbon. And then when he said wood, so you can bring one piece. Guy the Tanina, like we learned over there, we learned over there, Tanin Taman, Shnayim b'yadar shnei gezereitzim, that it enumerates the various Kohanim's jobs in the morning, and it says there were two Kohanim, each one carrying one chunk of wood, meaning the two of them had total 2 pieces of wood. So we see that each one was carrying one, meaning each one was doing a separate avodah. Korban korban l'rabis, and it says over there that they counted the korban, meaning the wood, to be placed and set up as a pyre on the mizbeach. And since each one of them was bringing one piece, and it's an avodah, it's a service of the Beis Hamikdash, it tells us that each one is a separate avodah, each one is a korban, it's individual korban. Rabbi Shuma Levi Amar, and Rabbi Shuma Levi now defines what counts as this chunk. As we mentioned in the Mishnah, Avyan, Amma ba'Amma, that its length and its width was 1 Amma by 1 Amma. So it was at least it was square-like block of an Amma, let's say a foot and a half by a foot and a half of wood. Lefikach lo yai by ela Amma geduma, and therefore it was exactly an Amma. Reb Choni Amar, v'tani kain Amma Yisoid, Amma Seviv, Amma Karkav, Amma Kabanas, Amma Maracha. As sorry, I skipped the line. Reb Choni v'Shem Rabbi Amma Kamin Turtani. He says it was like a scale. That it was a block that it was also thick in Amma. So it wasn't only long and wide in Amma, but also thick in Amma. Amar Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yitzchak Lafish lo yaya makom amaracha el Amma lama. And the reason why it can't be more than an Amma is because the pyre itself can only be 1 Amma by an Amma. Lefikach lo yaya by el Amma geduma. Therefore, the brick of wood had to be exactly 1 Amma. It couldn't be rounded on any of the sides because it needed to be an Amma, but it also only had place to be an Amma. So you couldn't have any sides rounded. Matane Kain, and as we learned, Amma hayisoid, Amma sevev, Amma karkev, Amma koronos, Amma marach. That the measure of an Amma, where each one of these things was an Amma. The base of the mizbeach. The base of the mizbeach was 1 Amma high and protruded 1 Amma. The Amma sevev, midway on the mizbeach, there was like a ramp and a ledge. That was also 1 Amma. The Amma Karkov, there was like a mesh of copper around. That was also 1 Amma. The Amma Koronis, there were corners like boxes, blocks of, let's call them horns, on the corners of the mizbeach. They were also an Amma by an Amma, 1 cubit by a cubit. The Amma ma'aracha, and the fire on the mizbeach also was 1 Amma. So we have all of these things being 1 Amma, and if the fire was and if the pyre was made of wood, that each one had to be an Amma by an Amma, you couldn't have space for it to be a round, circular a chunk of wood, like we would imagine that you just sliced through a trunk of a tree, and then you would have this round slice of wood. No, it actually had to be squared off to be a brick, a block of wood. The Mishnah also said somebody donated levona, frankincense, that it would have to be le'yivches mikomitz, no less than 1 komitz, which is a fistful that the kohen would take in a mincha offering. Nemar kan askara, v'nemar lahalan askara. It says over here that it is a remembrance, meaning it is something taken from the meal offering that was placed on the mizbeach as a remembrance of the offering itself, meaning it's a portion of the offering that is placed on the mizbeach. And v'nemar lahalan, it says by lechem apanim, the showbread as well, that it's at askara, that the frankincense would be placed as a remembrance of what was of the offering. You place on this set up of the showbreads on the table, levaina zaka, pure frankincense, and it'll be to the breads the askara, meaning ma'askara amar la'alam, just as by the showbread, the remembrance, meaning none of the bread itself is going on the mizbeach. The part that goes onto the mizbeach is the frankincense in the vessels, and that it's maloi kometz. It has to be a full fistful of the frankincense. As it says, as the Torah says, that by a mincha offering, the kohen is going to take a full fistful, the maloi kometz, as karasa, its remembrance. So just as in an animal korban, some part of it goes on the mizbeach, and the rest of it does not, unless it's an ascent offering. But other offerings, some part goes to mizbeach and the rest does not, and the rest is eaten. So to the meal offering, the mincha, one part goes on the mizbeach and the rest not, and that's the fistful from the kohen, the kometz, and that kometz is its remembrance, meaning its part that goes on the mizbeach that is the symbol of the rest of it that's left behind. So to the levina, the frankincense by the showbread, where none of the meal offering, none of the bread itself goes on the mizbeach, the frankincense is its remembrance. And just as over there by the mincha it says it's a fistful, so too the frankincense by the levina by the table is a fistful. And so when somebody makes a donation, it has to be maloi kometz, a full fistful. The Gemara is going to continue, and we'll see this tomorrow, questioning the connection, the comparison to the lechem aponim, to the showbread, to the frankincense by the showbreads, which was one kometz.